In 1971, 24 college kids walked into a fake basement prison. 6 days later, it was shut down for turning good men into monsters. For 50 years, that story was taught as hard science. But hidden in the archives sat a single audio tape. And on it, the men in charge are coaching cruelty. 24 college kids, one fake prison. A study that would haunt psychology for 50 years. It happened in the basement of Stanford's Jordan Hall. August 1971, a summer that became a legend. Real police helped arrest the prisoners at their own homes. Handcuffs, fingerprints, blindfolds over the eyes. Neighbors watched college boys hauled into squad cars. They were driven to a basement dressed up as a jail. Stripped down, hosed, deloused like criminals. Handed a smock with no underwear underneath. A heavy chain locked around one bare ankle. Their names were taken away completely. From now on, they were only a number. The guards got a very different costume. Crisp khaki uniforms, wooden batons in hand, mirrored sunglasses so no one could meet their eyes, and one quiet instruction from the men in charge. Keep order, keep these prisoners in line. Hold that single word, instruction. That word is where the whole story breaks open. But first, the legend everyone was taught. The man behind it was Philip Zimbardo, a 37-year-old psychologist with a bold idea. He recruited through a newspaper ad in the Palo Alto Times. $15 a day for a study of prison life. Worth roughly $115 today. Around 75 young men answered the call. 24 were chosen for the basement. A coin flip decided each man's fate. Heads you guard, tails you serve time. Pure chance split strangers into rulers and ruled. And then, the story goes, something dark woke up. Within days, the guards seemed to turn vicious. Endless push-ups as punishment. Counting drills that dragged into the night. Prisoners stripped, mocked, and humiliated for sport. Sleep ripped away in midnight head counts. Buckets replaced toilets. Dignity drained out. One prisoner cracked under the pressure. He screamed that he was burning up inside. Pulled from the study after just 36 hours. Then another broke, and another. The basement felt like it was spinning out of control. Zimbardo had planned 14 full days. He pulled the plug after only 6. On paper, the conclusion was electric. Give ordinary good people power, and evil pours out. It wasn't the man, it was the situation. The lesson spread across the entire world. It marched into every psychology textbook. It was used to explain Abu Ghraib decades later. It became something close to gospel. And for years, almost nobody pushed back. The story was too clean, too useful. It offered a strange kind of comfort. Evil isn't hiding inside bad people, it said. Evil is hiding inside bad situations. Any of us could become the monster. Zimbardo became famous on the strength of it. He wrote a bestseller, The Lucifer Effect. He testified about the power of the situation in court. The experiment stopped being a study. It became a moral the world wanted to believe. And morals are very hard to fact-check. Here's the strange part nobody mentioned. The study was never published in a top peer-reviewed journal. Its fame came from media and Zimbardo himself. Textbooks, documentaries, and one charismatic storyteller. A powerful tale, repeated until it felt proven. Then, in 2018, a man started digging. A French researcher named Thibault Le Texier. He went into Zimbardo's own archives at Stanford. Dusty boxes of tapes, memos, and transcripts. He expected to confirm the famous legend. Instead, the legend began to crack in his hands. Because the guards were not left alone. They did not simply discover cruelty by themselves. According to Le Texier's archival work, they were guided. Before the study even began, the team briefed them. They handed guards rules built to dehumanize prisoners. Strip their names, strip their comfort, strip their power. Guards who acted too soft were corrected. Pulled aside and told to toughen up. An ex-convict consultant, Carlo Prescott, advised the team. Many harsh methods came from real prison practices, borrowed from the outside and fed to the guards. Not spontaneous inventions bubbling up from within. And then there is the tape. On one recording, a guard hesitates. He says plainly he doesn't want to be harsh. The warden pushes back, hard. That warden was David Jaffe, Zimbardo's own assistant. His words survive in the archive. Every guard has to be a tough guard. That is what we call it, he insists. The pressure to be cruel came from above. It was encouraged, rehearsed, and corrected. But here we must be careful and precise. The guards were not handed a line-by-line script. They were given rules and nudged toward toughness. Steered, not puppeteered word for word. And not every guard took the bait. By most accounts, only about a third turned cruel. Many guards were fair. Some were genuinely kind. That detail vanished from the famous retelling, because it ruined the clean, dramatic story. Then the participants themselves began to speak, and their accounts changed everything. Remember the prisoner who screamed he was burning up? His name was Douglas Corpy, number 8620. Years later, he made a startling claim. He said the famous breakdown was faked. He told a journalist he was simply acting. Any clinician would know I was faking, he said. I'm not that good at acting, he admitted. He says he wanted out to study for an exam. The GRE was looming, and the basement was boring. It is worth noting Zimbardo disputed this. He argued Corpy was ashamed of breaking down, so treated as Corpy's own account, contested. But Corpy was not the only one to recant. Meet the most brutal guard of them all. Nicknamed John Wayne by the frightened prisoners. His real name was Dave Eshelman. He was only around 18 years old, and he had taken acting classes. He later admitted the cruelty was a performance. He modeled his villain on a movie character, the cold warden from Cool Hand Luke. His words are chilling and clear. What came over me was not an accident. It was planned, he said. He wanted to force the action, to make something happen for the researchers to study. He believed he was giving them the show they wanted. The dramatic descent into evil had a performer, and a performer needs an audience to please. Now, hold the line on the truth here. The experiment was real. People genuinely suffered. The distress in that basement was not invented. This is not a story about nothing happening, but it was not a clean scientific experiment. Critics call it a stage-managed demonstration. Look at the method and the cracks show. There was no control group to compare against. The sample was tiny and far from random. The lead scientist ran his own prison. Zimbardo played the prison superintendent himself. He had a result in mind from the start. He told his team the goal in advance. Demonstrate the power of the situation. Participants could sense the expected outcome. Psychologists call this demand characteristics. People guess the result, then perform it. What looked like proof was closer to a play. A play with its ending decided beforehand. These critiques are not one angry voice. Letexia laid them out in 2018. Journalist Ben Blum wrote The Lifespan of a Lie. A 2024 documentary gathered the survivors again. Several of them confirmed the criticisms on camera. So why did the myth survive 50 years? Because the story was simply irresistible. It was simple, dramatic, and strangely flattering. It let us all off the hook. Blame the situation, never yourself. Textbooks repeated it without checking the tapes. Documentaries dramatized the most shocking moments. The boring truth never went viral. Zimbardo defended his work to the very end. He kept making his case on his official website. He died in 2024, still arguing he was right. Be fair to him, he believed his story. He was a serious, influential scientist, not a cartoon. But belief is not the same as proof. A compelling tale had worn a lab coat for decades, and the lab coat fooled almost everyone. Here is where the story turns to you. The real lesson was never about prisons. It was about why we believe things. We didn't accept the experiment because it was proven. We accepted it because we wanted it to be true. A good enough story can wear a lab coat for 50 years. So the next time science says exactly what you feel, pause before you swallow it whole. Ask who designed the study and why. Ask who is holding the clipboard. And ask who is simply playing a part. Because the most dangerous lies don't sound like lies. They sound like the truth you already wanted.